Welcome to Franchise Empires, where aspiring entrepreneurs learn exactly what it takes to become a successful franchise owner, from one location to 10 and beyond. I'm the Wolf of Franchises. Hey everyone, it's the Wolf. Today on the show, we have Alexandra Spitz, the CEO and founder of the New Mom School, a unique franchise offering that helps new mothers navigate life after the birth of their child. We talk about why this is a problem that needs to be addressed, how Alex got the idea for the business, and why she ultimately chose franchising as her path to grow her business. To me, it's a great example of how franchising can be used for maximum impact by founders. Whether you're a franchisee looking for an exciting new concept or a franchisor looking to learn from others in the industry, this is a great conversation that has something for everyone. Enjoy.
The Wolf of Franchises is the CEO of Wolfpack Franchising, as well as a creator at Workweek Media. All opinions expressed by the Wolf and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Wolfpack Franchising or Workweek. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. The Wolf, Workweek, and Wolfpack Franchising may maintain positions in the franchises discussed on this podcast.
There's a quote, Alex, that I'd love to start with where I know it was founded in 2012, but it says within 6 weeks, you had a website launched and had classes running. So I'd love to learn about what happened in 2012 that led to the idea and that just led you to moving that quickly to getting it going and building the business.
Yeah. So in 2012, I had a 1.5-year-old, my first son. And my husband was relocated for work about an hour and a half south of where we were currently living. And when my older son was born, let me back up even further. When I was pregnant with my first son, I remember being kind of judgy McJudgerson of other moms who had had babies, specifically my brother and sister-in-law, who, it was super hard. And I just remember thinking, that's not going to be me. It's going to be a breeze. I'm put on this earth to be a mom. And then when he was born, the reality is so vastly different than the expectation. And I was having such a hard time. Very surprisingly, my husband and I had always had this really adoring relationship, and baby came and there was a lot of tension between us. We felt really distant and disconnected, and it was so surprising. And I was really humbled by the experience. And my mom was the one that actually said, you need to find a mom group. I was thinking, I don't need a mom group. I'm fine, but okay, I'll try anything at this point because I really want to enjoy this experience more than I'm actually enjoying it. I felt like a hostage to my own baby. I felt like I was grieving the loss of my freedom. It was all of these experiences that I wasn't expecting or really knew how to handle. And so I joined this mom group that ended up really saving my life in a lot of ways, saving my sanity, definitely saving my experience, and actually allowed me to feel joy in these moments of this newborn period. And so fast forward 1.5 years later, when my husband was actually relocated for work, I remember searching for another program that was similar to what I had experienced back in the LA area where we lived. And I couldn't find anything. I went to all the different classes, and all I wanted was to connect with other women again. And when I realized that there wasn't anything available for me, I realized that meant that there wasn't anything available for other moms either in that newborn phase. And it just became kind of clear that this was sort of my calling and that I was meant to create something that I had the same experience with so that other women didn't have to suffer like I had. But the caveat to that is that even when I had my original mom group, there was no education involved. And it was really just more of like a social setting where it was organized with other moms, but there was no structure to the classes. And I just remember thinking that I could create something a lot better than I had been a part of, so that I could provide those answers to other women like I had been hungry for when I had a new baby. And that's kind of what propelled me to create this. It hadn't ever been done before with the education piece of it. There's mommy and me programs all over the place, but we're not actually a mommy and me program. We're postnatal education and support and community. So what we're doing is, similar in the sense that we're gathering women together who are in the postnatal period, but unique in the sense that we're actually structured around research-based education and information.
Okay. Well, that's fascinating. There's a lot of interesting things to touch on. And, what was that V1, like version 1, like, you mentioned community and education, we're going to get to, of course, where everything is today with the franchise and whatnot. But yeah, what was that very first group of moms? Like, were you guys meeting in a basement? Did you find some community center? Like, what was I want to hear the scrappy startup story here.
I love that you asked that. So I am a doer and I get things done very quickly. When I make a decision, I go for it. So once I realized that there wasn't anything like this in the Orange County area where we were living now, I said, that's it, I'm doing it. And I found someone who could design branding for me, get a website launched. And I went into some mom Facebook groups at the time and I said, hey, I am thinking about starting this structured program where I will find a place to meet. I'll schedule the classes. I'll bring in various experts to present on topics that, I'm not an expert in personally. And I'll gather all the resources and you guys just have to show up with your babies. Would anybody be interested in something like that? And instantly I had 15 or 16 moms that were like, we're in. And so I kind of gathered this group of 12 women who all had babies between 0 and 12 months old. And the ultimate goal was to get them in a much smaller age range so that the babies would be a lot closer in age. But to start off, I just wanted sort of like this pilot group of women. I had them come for free. I found an office space that was in a therapy practice, and they had this empty office space. And the moms would come in and they'd ring the doorbell. If you've ever been in a therapy practice, you ring the door, you turn on the light for the practitioner that you're looking for. And I laid out a blanket in the middle of the room. The moms all sat around on the floor and against the walls. And I structured these 4 weeks of topics, and I had experts that came in. And then the moms all wanted to continue on for another 4 weeks. So then we did another 4 weeks. And then they wanted to continue on after that. So I created another 8 weeks of topics. And that's when I started charging for the classes, because then it became clear that there was a really dire need for it. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. It grew like wildfire. I had told my pediatrician and my OB about it. They told their pediatrician and OB friends about it. And it kind of just became this staple in the community right from the beginning.
That is super interesting. And I love just the approach. It's like analogous to kind of what a lot of tech startups do, like just offer product for free. Sole goal is like, hey, user feedback, like let's just see what happens. And you kind of did that with this whole community and curriculum. And I'm curious, what was the dynamic like back then of, I imagine, like, do you have an internal framework for how you think about, 'cause I'm just going to guess that like there's a community component that starts building where it's like, hey, I just like, meeting up with the group once or twice a week or whatever the number is. But yeah, how do you think about that of like, that balance of like, is this educate? I mean, it's both, but like, what do you think the big draw is?
It's the trifecta
for each mom.
It's the trifecta. It's the support, it's the education, and it's the community. And so what happened was over the years, not even years, months at that point, the word got out very quickly, and we started filling up classes, and I added more classes, and I added more curriculum for as the babies grew older. And what happened was the age range of babies started getting smaller and smaller. So now we're at the point, so we're 11 and a half years in at this point, and we've had over 6,000 moms in our classes in our Orange County location and our flagship. And obviously now with the franchise and all these other locations in development, that number is just going to continue to grow exponentially, which is wild. And it wasn't ever my goal, which we can talk about. But the community aspect is a lot of what the women are looking for initially. And I always say that the classes include things that you never thought you needed to know. So as a new mom, just like I was, I never thought I needed to know X, Y, and Z. And all these things happen in that phase where you're saying, why didn't anyone tell me this? Chances are that someone may have told you about certain things, but when you're pregnant, it goes in one ear and out the other. You don't think your life is going to change. You really don't think your life is going to change. And then the baby comes and it just rocks your world because your life changes vastly overnight. I mean, you end up being kind of in a crisis mode where everyone's just running around like a chicken with their head cut off and trying to just keep this human being alive. And there's a lot of pressure on the new families.
Yeah. Well, okay. That would be, I think, interesting to ask, especially knowing, I mean, podcast data is a bit of a black box, so we don't really get the best, but every indicator tells us that the audience is heavily male. I don't know how many are married and have kids and maybe witnessed, their wife having a baby, but, just generally speaking, what do you think some of the challenges of being a mom that like the new mom school really directly addresses? And like you've already mentioned, like, hey, as soon as you have a kid, like you have a loss of freedom. For you in particular, there was a bit of a friction developing in the marriage because of it. So is there like a common, 5 to 10 things that like that a lot of new moms are like, well, I didn't really expect this to happen?
Yeah, I mentioned the marriage piece because that's actually probably what the male audience can relate to the most. And, if you think about it, such a huge part of having a new baby is that the mother is typically the primary caretaker who is spending most of the day with their baby on them. So they're getting more physical touch than they've ever gotten in their lives, the woman. Meanwhile, man is getting least physical touch than he's ever gotten, especially after being in this relationship with the wife. And so that's a lot of the reason that it causes the divide, because that level of intimacy goes away. And so as men, your face says it all right now. Yeah. So you're like, I don't think I'm going to go down that path.
That's no comment. Yeah, we'll keep it PG for the viewers or listeners.
But the listeners will be able to relate to this fact. So what happens with men and women, the experience for men and women is very different. However, what they're feeling is actually very similar. We just don't talk about it. So what happens with men is that they end up feeling really anxious because they don't know how to care for a baby. They don't have a connection with their wives. They are feeling the pressure of needing to now financially provide for the family. So they end up retreating and withdrawing and going to work more because that's where they feel confident. Whereas at home, they're not feeling so confident anymore. And they don't feel like, they kind of feel like, they kind of think, where do I fit in? The other piece of that, which is what New Mom School solves, is that when you're in this kind of nuclear family at home and you're husband and wife, or partner and partner, I should say, the partner who isn't the primary caretaker, we call him the secondary caretaker, feels a pressure to emotionally support the primary caretaker because primary caretaker isn't sleeping, isn't in their normal routine of life. They're not going back to work right away. And there's sort of this belief that like the person who's not working should be the one taking care of the baby and waking up at night. And it's kind of a myth. I mean, it's a misnomer because everybody needs sleep. And when the primary caretaker isn't getting sleep, everyone in the family suffers. But the partner feels as though they need to emotionally care for the primary caretaker. Meanwhile, they don't know how to do that. Like a secondary caretaker knows even less about taking care of a baby. So they feel inadequate. And that's where a lot of the divide comes in. So what New Mom School solves for our male audience is that now New Mom School and their group of women emotionally support and take care of each other so that that partner at home doesn't have to. And so all of a sudden you have a happier mom, a well-educated mother. That education also trickles out into the spouse because the mother is learning in school, so to speak, how to sort of work with their baby, learn about what their baby's brains are doing, learn about what her body is doing after the birth. And, it just kind of tackles all of these areas that benefit the partner as well. So that's kind of how it benefits the male.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I feel like just in hearing you kind of describe like what commonly happens, that I could see like a benefit of being I don't know, student probably isn't the right word, but a customer of sorts of the New Mom School.
Yeah, you are a student.
Just it's almost like you guys provide like borderline therapy and but psychological explanations of because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like, I don't know what's happening. I'm feeling a lot of things. My partner's feeling a lot of things.
Exactly.
Why are things going in a bad direction? You're like, hey, this is why you're feeling that way, probably.
Correct.
And I feel like even just knowing that could be really beneficial for a relationship.
Yeah. Listen, babies are the same that they've been since the beginning of time. What has changed is us. What has changed is our society, social media, articles, research. We have so much research and knowledge that's not being delivered to our new parents. And it's really a tragedy and such a missed opportunity in this country. We're actually one of only 7 countries in the entire world that don't provide paid leave for new mothers. And that means that mothers have to leave their babies really much earlier. What New Mom School provides is that kind of, even if a mom has to return to work, New Mom School can provide them with that support and education. Obviously, there's a lot of things that could change for the better in our country, but our goal is to fundamentally change how new mothers are cared for, because there's this whole aspect of what happens in a newborn's brain in the first 4 to 6 months of life. And it weighs heavily on how healthy their primary caretaker is. So if mom is not healthy, it actually has a negative and harmful effect on baby. So when we take care of mom, we have a better next generation. We all know that we're in a crisis in this country. We know that. It's not a secret.
Yep.
We know that the generation, I'm 43, so that generation below me is really in crisis because my generation has not been taken care of as new mothers. And so that's really my goal in all of this, is so that new mothers can have a better experience, so that their kids can have better outcomes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would imagine it just there's such a ripple effect on the family unit, right? The marriage success rates, and just in raising children that can be productive members to society. So
correct.
Yeah, it's really honestly fascinating, Alex. I'd love to hear about how. So you founded that. We talked about the original New Mom School at the kind of shared office space, I guess, at the therapist place. How did it evolve, over the years, generally, and into, the model that you eventually decided to franchise?
Mm-hmm. So after we had that office for about 3 months, I knew it had kind of exploded, and I knew I needed a place of my own. And what I did was I then went and leased a dance studio that didn't have any classes going on in the hours that we hold classes. So with new moms and newborns, it's very hard to get out of the house early in the morning, and it's very hard to be out of the house late in the afternoon and evening. So we sort of have this these times of day that work best for a mom and her newborn. And so it worked really nicely. So eventually what happened was then I ended up needing that studio every day of the week. So eventually I took it over directly with the landlord. I had my own lease there. In 2021, we moved into a different space within the same area, but we now had 2 classrooms. So in our Newport Beach location, we do have 2 classrooms. The beautiful thing about the franchise is that we can operate the entire program in one classroom. So our franchisees really benefit from needing a lot less space than we have in Newport Beach.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. And yeah, I mean, when did the decision come? Because I know you mentioned earlier that like, hey, this wasn't, originally you weren't like thinking franchise, which some people do get in, they're like, hey, I'm going to start a business and like, I'm building this because I'm going to franchise it within like a couple of years. When did the idea dawn on you and how, like what time period is this? If you can give us
when did I decide
to start a second company, basically?
Yes. And a franchise, no less. So my goal was always to be able to help as many moms as possible, and at the same time have a balance where I can still pick up my kids from school and be with them in the afternoons. I love taking them to baseball and sports and all the things. I love being a mom to them in the afternoon. I was raised by a single mom, and I was the last kid at daycare. And I remember from a very young age having this desire to work part-time so that I could pick up my kids from school. And that allowed me to do that. Having New Mom School allowed me to do that. I have a really, really good balance with it. So in 2022, we moved out of California and we moved to the Dallas area. And I decided that I wanted to sell my Orange County location and possibly open where I lived, possibly not, possibly spend time with my kids. And when I spoke to a colleague who was a business broker, he said, he's like, I can sell this for you easy. You have someone in your community, I'm sure, that will want to buy it. But I think before you do that, I think that you should look into creating a franchise out of it. And I had always wanted to expand and open more, but I knew that I couldn't personally do it. I did not have the bandwidth. I couldn't be the mom I wanted to be. And I went down the path. I interviewed with some various franchise consulting firms. I decided to move forward with it because my ultimate goal has always been, again, to help as many new moms. And so because I knew I couldn't do it alone, even though this concept hasn't ever been done as a franchise model, it was the best business structure in order for me to get to my goal of being able to really help care for new moms. The other piece of that is that over the years, one of my other biggest passions is helping other women become entrepreneurs. So I've helped multiple women who have been in my classes who have shared that they don't want to go back to the corporate grind, or they don't want to go back to teaching, or they have this special skill and they wish they could do something with it on their own. And so I've really encouraged women over the years to actually take that leap and become their own bosses and become entrepreneurs. And so this franchise model actually checked off 2 of my life's biggest passions, which was the moms and helping women become entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Wow. That's, it's rare to actually find someone who, can kind of like there's the Venn diagram of like what your interests and then what also makes like a viable business opportunity. And a lot of
Yeah.
people are, that once you kind of peel back the layers, it's like, yeah, like I just kind of fell into it, but then I started to like it and then it was successful. So like, who doesn't like, when you feel like you're winning, you
Yeah.
keep going. But this is like a really good match. And even, yeah, I totally agree on your point. Just like the franchise model, I mean, it's such a good mechanism to scale, not just speed wise, but yeah, like the impact you can have in so many different communities. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really good match for your business. And yeah, well, I mean, so you started the conversations in 2022. When was like when was the day where you like opened up for business, meaning like you could actually talk to prospective franchisees? And I know you're at 11 locations open today, which is super exciting, but let's bring
Not
it
open
back to
yet,
like
but in
maybe.
development.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it.
I don't want to
Yeah.
mislead anyone.
No, yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
Adam has been teaching you well on the
He
regulations
has.
then.
He has.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so we announced that we were available to franchise in September of 2023. So we are
Okay.
about 10 months in at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And I mean, yeah, so coming from running a location, I think this would be helpful for there's aspiring franchisor founders out there. There's like franchisees who like become successful in the franchisee world. Maybe they own 10, 15 locations and they're like, I want to be a franchisor next. I mean, you went from running your location, like, yeah, what's this? You're 10 months in, so it's pretty early, right? What's been some of the biggest, I don't know, lessons learned and or kind of the way, right? You had a baby and you're like, didn't see any of this coming. Was there anything like that in the franchising side where like didn't know that was going to happen?
Of course. So I think had I gone into this with the primary goal of it being a financial gain, I don't know that I'd recommend doing it again. Just, I don't know that I would do it again. But because my ultimate goal has always been to help new moms, it's always felt like I haven't had a choice to quit, even though there's been moments where it's like, okay, so myself personally, when I don't understand something or I'm not good at something, that's when I feel like I want to give up. But what I've also learned about myself is that when I have a passion or a goal, I become obsessed with learning everything I can about it and just researching nonstop and learning so much about it. The franchise world is heavily male dominated, like you said, and I see why. And I think that there is a beautiful space for women to join the franchise world as well. And I hope that with my concept and with some other concepts that are getting out into the world, that becomes possible for women. So I just don't know that there's been opportunities in the past for women to make that leap into being a business owner because we are, as a species, we're more emotional. We are more nurturing. We want to dedicate ourselves to the people in our lives that we love the most. And sometimes it feels as though we don't have anything left after that to give to a business or to other people. And I want women to know that that's not the case. The case is that you can have it all. I've really worked tirelessly at making this franchise system mom friendly so that she can have a successful business and be present for her family and herself and be an individual. One of the things I'm really passionate about is growing the individual. So our franchisees also get leadership training from a coach that I work with that specializes in women leadership. They are continuously kind of encouraged and supported to work on themselves so that they have that confidence that a lot of us women lack. We're not raised to believe that we can do anything. We're raised to believe that we need to get married and have families and, maybe work or be a teacher. And, oddly enough, like even today in 2024, that's still sort of the rhetoric that is out there. And I just really want to break that. It's just not true. It's a myth. And men and women have so many incredible skills that can really complement each other. We're not against each other. We really are a team. And men have strengths that women don't have, and women have strengths that men don't have. And I've always believed that if we can actually just come together and work together, we can be so powerful as a nation, as a community.
I love that. And you touched on how franchisees, you want them to be able to balance basically like their work and owning the business and running the business with, still being a great mom. So, I'm curious to know, like, have you seen and maybe even is it a requirement for franchisees to be a mom?
As of now, it's a great question. It's not a requirement, but we wouldn't recommend. I think being a franchisee, not as a mom, is okay. But being an instructor in classes, we want women that are moms because there's just another level of understanding and empathy that you can provide our class members.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, you can't just be a teacher for a subject at a high school if you didn't do the work to
have some training in it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and there's only one way to get the experience you need. So
correct. Yeah.
I will certainly never be an instructor, but
you could be a franchisee though.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of franchisees, what do you see, is there an ideal structure for them as far as what their day-to-day looks like? Like, are they hiring instructors? It sounds like they can also be an instructor if they are a mom. What are the kind of the roles and responsibilities at a typical location?
Yeah. So the wonderful thing about our franchise framework, which I've been, like I said, obsessed with creating an incredible experience for our franchisees, listening to your podcast and really researching what franchisees are most frustrated with, I want to counteract that and I want to get in front of it right from the beginning. And what I hear over and over is that franchisees don't feel like their franchisors give them enough support or framework. And they feel like they're kind of ignored and sort of left to figure things out on their own. So I am tirelessly working at creating this framework and resources and tools and training and ongoing support so that our franchisees feel as though we have their back. We have an incredible team on the corporate side. I feel like we are overstaffed so that we can provide this really incredible level of support for our franchisees. I believe that a franchise owner can really do this working, 5-6 hours a day throughout the week. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not a 40-hour work week. And it also doesn't feel like work. So that's the other piece of this, that you are you're doing good, but also while doing good for yourself. And so it's kind of this win-win where, if your baby has a nap time throughout the day and you want to be home for that, you don't have to be out in the community doing anything. You can be home with your baby while they're napping and you can be doing some administrative work online. So the setup is really designed in such a flexible way where you can really have that flexibility. It's, you asked earlier about people kind of going into businesses because of that financial outcome. I never did a financial projection. I never was concerned about the numbers. I just had this really strong feeling that this had to be done, that I had to create this program that didn't exist and was something that I would have wanted as a new mom. It happened to be successful. It happened to be profitable, and it happened to take off. And so I love being able to pass that along to other women and be able to show them that it is profitable and it can be successful. We really are so much more powerful together versus just like a one-off location here or another one-off mommy and me program here and there, which they exist everywhere. And I've always been supportive of every other program because I feel as though wherever moms can get support, they need it. If it's somewhere other than New Mom School, like by all means, whatever it is that's convenient for you, go find that support and community.
And for the business itself, is it are the moms who attend the school, are they paying is it like a membership, or is it like you pay for like a month or 3 months or 6 months of classes?
They're
they're
8-week series. They meet once a week for about an hour and a half. And we have 8-week series all the way up until their babies are 12 months old.
Okay. Amazing. And so after 12 months, if you're a mom who has a baby 13, none of their babies are under 12 months, there's currently no program for that.
Correct. So in Newport, because we have that extra space, we do have the ability to do an additional age group. And it is a possibility for our franchisees to do that as well if they have the space. The challenge with that is that age group at that point, they're very mobile and active, and we end up as moms taking them to more activity-based classes, gym classes, music classes, things where they can be more active and move around. And so we don't ever want to recreate what's already existing. We want to provide things that don't exist. And so that's kind of where we shine.
Super interesting. And I'm just thinking out loud here. I'd imagine for the new moms, right, when your school is a big part of them in their first year of being a parent. So I'd imagine the bonds they have with the other moms could be pretty strong. And have you ever thought, and maybe it's coming in the future, of just almost a way, maybe it's a blessing or a curse, I don't really know, but I'm always thinking about the financial side, where I'm just if you could somehow retain all those moms from with some community component, then you have recurring revenue for a long time potentially.
Yes, I do.
So I'm just curious if you any thought on that.
Lot of thoughts on that. I sort of like what we talked about earlier, that's in of itself another business, like an alumni association.
Yeah.
And I really try and focus on how can we make the biggest difference, provide the biggest amount of value. And that's always in the newborn period of time. So absolutely there is revenue options for the future, and it's not my specialty. So it's something that I would absolutely welcome feedback about, or, we've always grown our team organically with people coming to us and saying, this is my background, this is my area of expertise, I can really help you create this. And maybe after this podcast airs, someone will approach me and say, this is my area of expertise and I can help you create this. And I would be very much open to that.
That's awesome. Well, hey, I think it shows that you're focused. A lot of brands take on too much, add too many, in businesses in general, add too many different products or revenue streams. So I like that you're dialed in on a core focus and a core customer persona. Because there's always the ability to add on revenue streams down the road, but I think early on it's always good to have a clear focus.
You nailed it. When you try and do everything, you don't do anything well.
Correct. Yeah. All right, awesome, Alex. Well, this has been super fun to learn about your business, the origins, the franchise. Is there anywhere online where listeners who either want to just follow along your journey or maybe get in touch about the franchise, where they can do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is newmomschool.com, and it's just singular mom, a new mom, not new moms. Newmomschool.com. Same with Instagram at newmomschool. All of our handles are the same. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, website, LinkedIn. Everything is New Moms.
Amazing. Okay, great. Well, we'll plug the LinkedIn, Instagram, and the website in the show notes, folks, so you can access them there. And yeah, Alex, thanks so much again. And we'll have to have you back on the show maybe once you get to 50 or so units, and we'll get an update episode.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. We'll
Thank
talk soon.
you.
Thanks for listening to Franchise Empires. We're coming to you soon with actionable insights to take the next step on your franchise journey. So make sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen.